Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated continues our coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes with our instant analysis from Ohio State's 41-20 win over the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. I'm Brendan Gulick with Andrew Lind and Tommy Zagorski, and I'll tell you what, 41-20 looks like a comfortable final score margin. This was not a comfortable game by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it was a one-touchdown game more than midway through the fourth quarter. Not the kind of win that Ohio State necessarily on paper you'd think they would have against a non-Power 5 team. Tulsa's a tough team. They played Ohio State with some creativity and really forced the Buckeyes to have a full 60-minute game plan. But guys, I think right off the top, we have to start with TreVeyon Henderson. Unbelievable effort from him today. Andrew, he broke Ohio State's freshman single-game rushing record, and you have to think that this is maybe the first of many big games for Mr. Henderson.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw, in the Minnesota game, he had that long catch and for a touchdown. And that was really just him scratching the surface, to then today get consistent carries and be involved and be a focal point of the offense. You can see what he can do with it now.
Yeah, awesome to see that today, Andrew. TreVeyon Henderson, the third most rushing yards in a Buckeye game. Exciting to see this kid come out to play today. And it's been interesting at the running back position. It seems like we only go with two every single week for the Buckeyes. Mayan Williams was not a factor in today's game. It was good to see Master Teague get back in the game as well. Have some good carries at some good times to kind of balance out the Buckeye rushing attack. But TreVeyon Henderson, welcome to Buckeye Fan Nation. A lot of people are excited to watch this young man continue to wear the scarlet and gray.
He had a great day, and Ryan Day said afterward in his postgame press conference that this was about riding the hot hand, and he wanted to make sure that he tried to give Master Teague some opportunities, but by the same token, Mayan Williams was healthy and able to go. He just wasn't used today. It sounded like Mayan Williams did not practice every day this week. Ryan Day didn't elaborate on that any further than that, but he was healthy and available. It just became a Henderson and Teague day. And, when you've got TreVeyon running the way he did, it's easy to continue to give him the football. So no qualms there whatsoever. And obviously a banner day. He broke Archie Griffin's 49-year-old record, by the way, 1972, when Archie Griffin previously had the freshman single-game rushing record. So for as well as TreVeyon Henderson shined today, I said at the outset that this was not a comfortable win. And I don't want to poo-poo a victory, but there's an element of this wasn't a rousing, incredible performance that maybe we expected. And it started with CJ Stroud. His accuracy today, again, an issue.
Yeah, and when I first saw that Tulsa lost the season opener to UC Davis, I thought that this was just going to be a real blowout. But then last week they kind of bounced back and played Oklahoma State really closely, and that kind of got you thinking maybe they have defensive coverages that will kind of confuse Ohio State, and they did that today. I know that they run a very unique defensive front, and that kind of got into Stroud's head. And like you had mentioned, he's still struggling with maybe his consistency and overthrowing the ball, and those are things that are going to have to change moving forward. But Ryan Day is really sticking with him at this point, and it's just a matter of continuing to build up your freshman quarterback with confidence and get him moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah, it was tough to see him. Yeah, it was tough to see him miss guys early, Brendan and Andrew. Once again, but he never got to that moment where in the second half he kind of took off, throwing the football like we've seen in week 1 and week 2. So it's going to be a lot of talking this past week with this upcoming week with the coaching staff as he gets ready to play another unique defense with the University of Akron. They're going to give him a multitude of fronts. They're going to bounce in between even and odd, similar to kind of what Tulsa did today. Tulsa stayed pretty much in their odd defense. They let their linebackers walk around and do a lot of different things to kind of disguise what they were going to do, schematically speaking. But just CJ didn't look comfortable today. And we talked about it last week. He kind of alluded to potentially an injury in his post-game press conference after the Oregon loss. But maybe there's something going on there physically that we're not aware of. But he keeps missing high, and it's frustrating to see. with these receivers that we have, this elite group of receivers, that even ends up in a day where, Chris Olave, unfortunately, his big catch gets taken away off the board, and it doesn't find his way into a stat sheet. And I can't remember the last time you watched a Buckeye game and you didn't go, well, at least Olave got his yards from that standpoint. So, this week's going to be important to get back to being able to throw the football. We talked about running the football last week, but yeah, CJ's got to be able to calm himself down a little bit, whether it be mental, whether it be physical, whether it be emotional, maybe it's even spiritual. But we got to figure out a way for him to connect there.
I think maybe he's at least past the point of hiding that shoulder injury. He was asked about it, I don't know, 6 or 7 different ways in the post-game press conference. My favorite quote, though, was, "It hurts, but life hurts. Winning is tough." And then he eventually wrapped it up by saying, I feel like I'm a tough guy. There's some level of you need your leaders to show some toughness. I just hope that it doesn't become detrimental to have him out there. Because for me, that's where, you want guys to do things that you're trying to lead a group of guys to do. You need to have uncommon character traits if you want to be a leader, especially on a field like this. But if it becomes detrimental, that's a problem. And thankfully, so far, I don't think CJ's arm is the reason why the Buckeyes are 2-1. I think the defense was the reason for the loss last week, and he has still put up very good passing numbers the first couple weeks. Today, he didn't really have to throw the ball so much, but he did have 185 yards passing and one tough interception. Z, let me ask you this, because I know the X's and O's are really your alley. How difficult is it, as CJ alluded to scheme against and execute against a 3-3-5 defense?
Yeah, the 3-3-5 defense, what it gives you, it's a balanced 6-man box every single play. And what I mean by the box is between the tackles. So they're going to try to outnumber you on the run every single time, but it gives them the flexibility with that extra, as the Buckeyes, the Buckeyes have their streak, their silver player, their nickel, their bullet. It's an extra nickel player in for the defense. So what it does, it gives them an extra defensive back that allows them to get him to fit in the run. It allows them to drop back into coverage and really disguise a lot of different things and get more exotic in your blitz packages. So there's times where, maybe something that seems like a standard blitz, that defense looks a lot different from an offensive perspective. So I think, Ryan Day, I give him credit on this. They got a lot of unbalanced. And one of the things that the 3-3 stack is known to not do well against is unbalanced formations. And what I mean by unbalanced formations is traditional formations having 4 skilled players to one side, which you saw the Buckeyes do today. They ran counter extra, which means that instead of pulling 2 guys on the counter, they ran 3 guys on the counter. And what that does, it gets that extra counter guy up on that nickel. It was really a good job by the Buckeyes today to be able to use it in the run game. And what it does is it kind of balances out the throw game for you a little bit as well. From that standpoint, he hasn't seen probably a 3-3 stack in a long time. And really, it's not as prevalent as most people think. But really, all it is a 3-4, moving that one extra guy into the box, and gives you the flexibility with that nickel player to play really, really aggressive or really passive, depending on the situation.
The only thing I would say here, Andrew, is maybe just to wrap up the offense, not perfect, but good enough. Mm-hmm. Last couple of weeks, it was the passing that provided some of those big home run plays. This week, it was more with the rushing attack. And TreVeyon had a 48 and a 52-yard touchdown run. So better balance today, obviously. I mean, right from the get-go, I think TreVeyon had 3 consecutive rushes to start the game, and then they threw him a screen pass. It took the offense a little bit to get going, but I thought better balance in the play calling today, and obviously the stats carry that out.
Yeah, and that was something that I had mentioned after the loss to Oregon too. If you look back to 2018, that was a struggle that they had as well with Dwayne Haskins, and it's kind of the same thing there, in that they were very pass heavy, and that they kind of disregarded the run in that aspect. So I think if you find that balance, that's obviously a positive. That's what they aim for in everything they do. But the biggest thing with that is, you're starting to see these little bits and pieces of Ohio State's offense that, like, the offense, the passing game is really good on one game, and then the running game is really good on the other game. And if they can put those 2 things together, that's obviously when you're going to get the Ohio State offense that under Ryan Day. So it's a matter of, there's still those growing pains. They're still learning those things because it is still early in the season. And, how often do you have a Big Ten road game to open the season before coming home to play a non-conference opponent? I know that they did that in 2017, and that was a very similar, result in that aspect. But I think, there was a difference in the fact that then they had a 5th-year senior quarterback in JT Barrett versus having a redshirt freshman quarterback who doesn't really know those things and, is only going and learning on a game-by-game basis.
All right, guys, I think we have to dive into the defense here. We've hit the offense enough. To me, the best way I think I would describe the defense today was death by 1,000 paper cuts. For the most part, there weren't really any huge game-breaking, huge momentum-swinging, chunk plays. They had a few, but none that went for 6. Tulsa, that opening drive, 16 plays, 81 yards. I was a little surprised, frankly, that the Golden Hurricane decided to kick a field goal when they had a chance to deliver a big blow inside Ohio State's 5-yard line. The big news of the day today, Kerry Combs goes from the sideline upstairs. Larry Johnson at Washington, Matt Barnes all down on the sideline. Matt Barnes signaled in the plays today and called the defense. I guess let's just start here. Z, your initial impressions on, how much more or less effective that might have been today compared to the last couple of weeks.
Well, compared to the last couple of weeks, Ohio State has been predominantly a man team with the middle of the field closed. When I mean the middle of the field closed is they play a safety in the middle of the field. Today, they were middle of the field open majority of the day, variations of different coverages, and staying in the zone game a little bit. And Brendan, you alluded to the fact it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. When you play a zone defense, you're keeping everything in front of you. Brendan, you were a baseball player growing up, and Andrew, if you played baseball growing up, whenever you played outfield, you never wanted the ball to go where? Over your head. Same deal with the secondary today. They kept it very soft. They played behind a lot of stuff. They gave up a lot of stuff, but they said, hey, this week we're not going to give up that big home run hit. And part of the reason they didn't want to give up a home run hit, like Tulsa's got 2 incredible backs that were really, really special players, but also they had some really good receivers as well. So it was guys that had big playability, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't give up that big play to kind of instill that confidence a little bit more in the defense. You saw the defense also with Matt Barnes calling it today, heavier in the blitz game with the linebackers early. It's feast or famine in that situation, because when you do that, you're asking guys to go fit in these gaps, but also if they miss on that gap, that's when a couple of those runs that were a little bit bigger today kind of got the Buckeyes exposed a little bit. But on the turn side, it did generate a little bit more pressure than the Buckeyes had the last 2 weeks. Part of that is, having the right guys. Tulsa's offensive line is not what Oregon or Minnesota's offensive line was. And next week against Akron, they're going to try to do probably something very similar.
Yeah, and just to kind of speak to your point about keeping everything in front of you too, if it's kind of one of those things when you have those younger players in there and you allow them to make a tackle in space and keep it in front of them and not get beat deep or anything like that, that instills confidence in them. And when you're going to have, Ronnie Hickman out there, Cameron Martinez, getting the first real reps of his career so far, you see what happens in that. He has a game where, maybe he kept everything in front of him, and then all of a sudden the ball's in his face, he gets an interception, it's returned for a touchdown, and then that's only going to build on that. So, it kind of reminds me a lot of, Ohio State's defense under Jeff Hafley too, and that, they would bend a lot, but they would never break. And it would, they would let things happen throughout the course of the field, 25-25, but then once they got into the red zone, they really tightened up. And I think that that's something that, if they're going to be successful, they have to get back to.
Davis Brin finished the day through the air 31 of 54 for 428 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs. The touchdown passes were both good throws, I thought. But, Tommy, especially to your point, man, in the second half, the pressure really started to noticeably ratchet up a bit. I thought Cody Simon played a good game at linebacker. Tommy Eichenberg had a memorable hit, but a couple of frustrating moments. Palaie Neote, I thought really, his tackle on third down to force that field goal on that opening drive was awesome. Perhaps we're going to see him a little bit more. Obviously, a bit disappointing that Taraja Mitchell was not really a part of the day today. It was a game time decision, and to my knowledge, I don't believe that he played. The Buckeyes come away from this game, I think, defensively feeling like, hey, it was good enough to win a game. Still have a lot of room to grow, I think, but also some promising things in the secondary in particular. Cam Martinez with the pick 6 at the end of the game. I thought Denzel Burke played a whale of a game. Cam Brown looks really good. For as worried as we were, 10 months ago with this pass defense, all of a sudden, to me, that's not much of a concern right now. The completions in front of them those have to be addressed. But like in tight coverage, I mean, guys are breaking up passes left and right and making some good open field tackles. Thought Ronnie Hickman made a couple of really nice open field tackles today. So it's a small step for me, but I'm encouraged by what I saw defensively.
Yeah, and if you remember too, there was Denzel Burke had the interception that was overturned and was a completion. So I really don't know how that was, because if you look at closely, he rolls over, he has the ball, that's an interception. And I mean, the confidence that he is showing as a true freshman, like I feel like he was really overlooked during the recruiting process. There was Jordan Hancock. And he was kind of a national recruit. They flipped him from Clemson, and Denzel has kind of come in under the radar a little bit and obviously made a name for himself. And I think that, if he continues to build on that, that's only going to help Ohio State's defense moving forward. So.
Yeah, it's good to see these young guys play well. And, obviously with Zach Harrison out, it gave JTT a little bit more reps and Jack Sawyer as well. The one pressure that JTT got, you got really excited about. I think going forward, there's something really special there. That's probably why he held out till July to decide where he was going to college. But, you're pretty excited about what he can do, for the Buckeyes as well. So I think there's some young guys that are going to play well, that are going to get better on the defensive front. They're going to continue to build confidence against lesser offensive lines the next couple of weeks. And, even like today, you watch, down the stretch, Brendan, we talked about this the other day, Maryland and Rutgers and Indiana, when we start off the Big Ten play, those offensive lines all today had issues at different times, throughout their games. So it's something to look at going forward, to build a little bit of confidence for these guys and really give them the ability to start making plays. And that's where the secondary in the past, the linebackers in the past, have been so much better, because the defensive line play at Ohio State over the last really decade has been so elite. This has right now been the least productive defensive line that I can remember of recent years. And until that changes, there's still going to be some question marks about this defense. Once Larry Johnson's, potion of the Godfather, the Rushmen, he gets that thing rolling, you're going to feel this defense being a lot better. And you're not going to see giving up 501 yards to a mid-major program like Tulsa.
So all things considered, the Buckeyes win today's game by 3 touchdowns, and they're back on the right foot moving forward after last week's really frustrating loss. But still a lot of work to do, and by the way, in front of a fairly small crowd. This was the smallest crowd at Ohio Stadium since 1971. The paid attendance today was just over 76,000. I guess there could be a number of different reasons for that, but the weather certainly wasn't one of them. It was, there was no threat of inclement weather today, with the exception of Andrew sweating profusely on the field because
right.
The heat index probably felt like 150 degrees.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that you don't really see, especially on TV or even if you're in the stands, is the fact that there's a turf field that really raises a level of the heat on the field, especially, for those players who are, if they're on the field for a long time on a long drive or something like that, that definitely can make an impact. So, it's a matter of staying hydrated, and I guess it's supposed to be like 63 later this week. So, hopefully that's the last time I have to deal with that.
Yeah, fall is coming. That's for sure. Z, any final thoughts from you, my friend?
No, hey, it's a victory. One of the things that you always look at the end of the day, it may not be the prettiest way to get at to it, but it's a victory. And Ohio State now picks up another win early in the season. They're 2-1 and have a lot of room to grow. The one thing I think that, with the 70,000 plus, 70,000-ish crowd, you look at these people right now, there's last week's loss. You have a team coming into town that's not a very good team on paper. And realistically, the product that people are associating with Ohio State football is not what people are seeing right now. There's been little glimpses of it in different rooms. But once all groups get together and start playing it, the groups of 9 get together, play at an elite level, and really put together that product that people are used to, I'm sure the Ohio Stadium will be back to 100,000 plus, jumping, rattling, and rolling, getting ready for something very special.
Looking forward to seeing the Buckeyes on the field next weekend, a Saturday night contest with the Akron Zips at 7:30. We got a lot to dissect from this one between now and then certainly we'll get you set up for that game as well. Live video and audio coverage coming all week long. We've got grades for today's game coming probably within the next 24 to 36 hours. Scouting report coming up on Akron, potentially some film breakdown again from today's game. Then we'll turn the page and our typical podcast series. Andrew does a Building the Buckeye series I think you'd really enjoy if you'll tune into that on Tuesdays. taking a look at all the future of Ohio State football and what's the latest on the recruiting trail. Wednesdays, we talk with somebody who covers the upcoming opponent. So we'll speak with somebody from the University of Akron football team this upcoming week. Thursday, we'll go inside the numbers as usual. And then Friday, our previews and predictions before next Saturday's game against the Akron Zips. Great job on Buckeyes Now today. We certainly hope you enjoyed our coverage. We're glad to bring it to you as often and as thoroughly as we can. And encourage you to check out all of our social media channels along the way as well. For Andrew Lind, for Tommy Zagorski, and for Eddie Murata, who did our production today, I'm Brendan Gulick. Good night from Ohio Stadium. Our instant analysis. The Buckeyes 41, the Tulsa Golden Hurricane 20. Good enough to get a win, but a lot of room for the Buckeyes to keep on going. See you soon.